everyone. A very warm welcome to another episode of Trade Insider, a podcast series brought to you by the International Chamber of Commerce Academy. My name is Priyanka Satapati and I will be your host for today. Being the educational arm of the International Chamber of Commerce, we offer professional trade finance certifications, and a course on documentary credit is part of the offering. In today's episode, we will be talking about ICC's recently released white paper on automation of document examination under documentary credits. As digitization continues to evolve, automated document examination is expected to be the new normal as financial institutions learn to trust and understand how machines work and the consistent approach that this brings to review. With an aim to identify ways to overcome obstacles in respect of the wider adoption of digitalized trade, the white paper was co-chaired by Uzair Bawany from Traydstream and Merisa Gimpel from Lloyds Bank. And in today's episode, both Merisa and Uzair have joined us to share their findings. Hello Uzair, hi Merisa. Welcome to this podcast episode. I would like you to say a few words to our audience.
Hi everyone, I'm Merisa Gimpel, and I run the trade and working capital innovation team at Lloyds Bank, and I'm also part of the ICC Banking Commission, and I co-lead a work stream together with Uzair, looking at the automation of document examination.
And hi, my name is Uzair Bawany. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Traydstream. We're a platform that automates trade finance documentation. And as Merisa said, we've been involved in this initiative for the last year and a half in putting this white paper together, and pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Merisa, let's start with you. Documentary credits, also commonly known as letter of credit, has been a long established but still rather esoteric trade financing instrument. In the recently released white paper, we are discussing about trade digitization. Can you outline why our listeners should consider the automation of document examination now? What are the challenges that we are trying to solve?
So documentary credits solve for a key challenge of mitigating risk between buyers and sellers. I think we can argue that in the current environment, that has never been more important. However, for the most part, documentary trade is still analog, it's still paper-based, manual, and also regarded as cumbersome and time-consuming. We know there are larger industry efforts underway in trade finance to drive towards a digital trade environment. This will take time, and this will take collaboration amongst a large number of different parties. So the focus here isn't on that. Instead, we are looking at the key challenge that we're trying to address in today's world. Can any of the friction within the documentary credit processing already be addressed by automation? So what can be made possible with technologies like OCR, like AI and machine learning? What is already possible in this field and what isn't? We also want to ask ourselves, what are the benefits, the considerations, the implications? Ultimately, we are asking if machines or technology can do the ordinary so that the trade specialists can focus on the value add.
Uzair, how were you approached to start this initiative for the white paper on automation?
Well, I think it was Michael Frontimitis, who was running Standard Chartered at the time for Europe and Americas, we've been talking to about automation, sort of suggested this idea. Michael runs the digitization group for the ICC. And I think, on many conversations with him, it was discussed that we need to make this a more wide stream approach and adoption, and actually creating some kind of structure for the ICC to be able to review, analyze, and try and understand exactly what this means. And the impact was kind of the genesis of the discussion that we had. And then Merisa and I spent some time together talking through this idea and put together the group, which started almost a year and a half ago now.
So, what are the high level objectives around the white paper?
So the white paper has really been designed to try and, I suppose, take away some of the myths around what doc automation can actually do today. There is this general view amongst most people in banks and corporates that you have to standardize to automate. And as Merisa said, I think we need to get more adoption and a wider kind of approach to people accepting that that it works, and B, that it can actually add value. When we set up Traydstream 5 years ago, people didn't even believe this even existed. And when we used to tell people, they thought we were crazy. So really what the white paper is doing is trying to remove some of those myths, to give people confidence that actually this is no longer a luxury, but a need to have, because of the importance of risk mitigation, to what Merisa said, as well as looking at how you can actually make your operations more efficient. The white paper was designed to try and lay out some of those concerns. And also, it was designed to try and make people understand that there are different levels of automation. And whatever level of the journey you're at in a bank, depending on where you are, that it was still possible to bring in automation in some shape or form. So you'll see that the paper talks, we've developed a risk framework in the paper, which really looks at how, where you are on the automation journey and how you could use automation within your own organization. So we've kind of laid down a framework, we've laid down some of the myths around what it actually does. We've tried to also look at some of the value in risk mitigation as well as the efficiency. And we hope that the paper has been designed in a way to give people a bit more curiosity, give people a bit more comfort, and also explore the ideas and the opportunities, no matter how manual or automated their processes are today. And I hope the white paper has achieved that.
I'm sure the audience would like to hear how many banks or corporations were involved in putting the paper together.
When we set up, we tried to put together a big group of different. So we've got technology providers in the group. I think there are 3 or 4. There are about 8 banks involved in our group, and I think there's about 3 corporates that are involved across Europe, Middle East, Africa, and obviously US as well. So we've really tried as best we can to keep the poll as wide as we can to get everybody's input. And it's been I think, a very positive and collaborative experience with lots of views from lots of people that I hope have given the view, along with obviously the national committees when they gave their input, that gives quite a holistic view of exactly what value this can add.
Marissa, to enable the conversation on automation to progress further, a survey was conducted. What is the feedback like? Do banks and corporates believe this can really work?
That's a great question, Priyanka. And that's something that we set out to ask in 2 different surveys. In fact, just about a year ago, we asked the same question. We asked, do you believe that a machine can check documents as well as an experienced document checker can? We asked that to a wide group. And 1 year ago, the results came back. 50% said no, 20% said partially, and 30% said yes. So I guess the thing to focus back on, about a year ago, the results coming back from the ICC-led survey was about 50% still said, no, I don't believe so. Well, when we issued the white paper last month, we also sent out a survey to which 80 businesses, mainly banks, but also some corporates, responded to, and we asked the exact same question again. Do you believe a machine can check documents as well as an experienced document checker can? And within the results, less than 10% said no, a bit more than 50% said partially, and you've got just over 20% said yes. So it's very interesting to see how this has shifted in a time frame of just 1 year.
Well, that's very interesting. Can you also talk us through the potential benefits of automation for financial institutions and corporations?
Yes, of course. So within the survey, we also asked about the value in automating document examination. And I'm going to describe the benefits in the order of what the respondents have said were most important. So I think we'll start first with improved efficiency. That was by far got the highest vote in terms of value achieved. And in terms of benefits, that translates into an increased scalability to handle letters of credit volumes, lower operating costs, can support in speeding up the end-to-end processing times, and also support the usage of digital and electronic records. Now, the second aspect beyond efficiency, which was raised as potential value add, was all around standardization. Benefits around standardization could be an increased in standardization across document checking criteria and moving towards conformity and congruence, increased confidence in a set of independent guidelines, and an advanced and shared understanding of terminologies and common objectives. So those are all potentially possible through automation of document examination. The third element is all around improved quality and less spurious discrepancies. Fourth potential benefit area is around improved risk management. The fifth one is all around talent management and learning and development, which I thought was quite interesting for this segment in particular, Priyanka. And the aspects of talent management that were raised as benefits is one around the fact that experienced document checkers can concentrate on where they're needed most. It almost makes the the job of a trade specialist more fulfilling, that you're not just doing more ordinary checks, but you can focus on handling the more potential discrepancies based on system feedback rather than having to do the entire check yourself. It also looks at benefits around talent recruitment as well. Systems can increasingly support new document checkers. Threshold to become a document checker could be lower, could support banks attract more potential candidates. So there is also an angle around talent management here as well. And finally, there are some other benefits. For example, the ability of banks to analyze business flows from the aggregation of the data that's being automated, an opportunity to maintain localized operations, were some of the other suggestions towards benefits that were received either within the working group or as a result of the survey.
Wow, that's quite a number of benefits. Moving on to our next question, has there been a debate on this matter? And what are the main challenges that you received?
I think that's a great question. So the purpose of the paper we put together is to stimulate discussion on the topic. And I'm really delighted that we have a lot of interest. In fact, we opened the door to even more questions. So within the surveys, we've got people asking all sorts of different questions, whether it's related to talent, whether it's related to accuracy, what about handwritten documents? And I think that's really great. So it wasn't the reason of the paper wasn't to say, look, this is the right answer and we're done. It was more to stimulate discussion, debate. Can it be done? Are there different considerations based on the different profiles and stages in the automation journey that different banks and corporates have? I don't know, Uzair, if you wanted to add anything more onto that, but it's definitely, the paper is not the end of the discussion. We have a number of things we are, as a working group, and also reaching out to the wider industry, going to tackle next.
Yeah, just on that point, Marissa, I think you're absolutely right. We have all agreed that this is not just a paper that you to use the old analogy, sits on a shelf and gathers dust. I mean, it's not going to sit in some website and everyone just sort of just reads it and doesn't do anything. And I think Marissa and I were very keen to try and ensure that actually the work streams that we use, that we go through now post paper, are around actual messaging. And so there's going to be a lot of work, and we've already started building work streams to try and look at how we can get this message out through partners, through media communications and various channels to ensure that the message is not lost.
User, this question is for you. As a fintech firm, can you give us some insight into the ability of a machine to check documents? I mean, is it really, really possible that a machine can check documents as well as an experienced document checker?
Well, yeah, obviously, I'm going to say yes for obvious reasons, but actually, even forget about me. I think the proof is in the pudding, as they say, and I think that is what I always use this term for, kind of saying seeing is believing. And we've worked with many banks, and it's been there's plenty of stuff on our website, in the press, around organizations like Standard Bank and others who actually have proven that the machine is able to check the documents as good as a human. And in fact, with customers around the world, we find even in pilot phases that the machine is able to pick up things that even humans miss. So we are very confident. We've just been doing an experiment with a very large global trade bank, which we were shortly to go live with. There's some exciting press coming out shortly. And actually, they did 400 transactions, and the machine picked up more than they did. So we are very confident that the platform today is able to deliver this in the same way as a human can. So, and that's not just from our own personal view, but actually from customers. So I think 5-7 years ago this wasn't possible, but with the advancement of AI, with the algorithms, with the technology, with OCR, and all the things that we use for machine learning, which is all based on kind of very deep learning models, I think today you can get machines to do the job better and more consistent than a human.
Is this process of using a platform to fully check document actually being adopted anywhere? Any case studies you can share to prove the concept?
We do plenty of case studies, and we have for customers decks on various case studies, because that, for us, use cases is really the ultimate test. And I think the public one that we talked about was obviously Standard Bank, which is the largest bank in South Africa, and I think one of the top 4 largest banks in Africa. And we are working across the whole of the continent, having started in South Africa, where they started by manually checking the documents against the machine, getting comfort and confidence that the document review is as good as a machine, training the platform on various nuances that they had. and now actually relying on the machine for the checks without the parallel run. And I think that to me is the ultimate test.
A recent initiative by the ICC Banking Commission provides guidance notes for documentary credit formats to perfectly complement automation. Can you talk us through this process and how will this happen?
Yeah, sure. So I think when we look at, it's interesting you use the word to perfectly complement automation. That's an interesting discussion, right? Because what does that really mean? I think the guidance notes that have come from the ICC are very kind of, I think, kind of an overview of what can happen. Every bank is different. One thing we've noticed is that every bank has a different approach to how they actually deal with the whole automation process. And that's why the framework that we put in place is designed to try and give people a view based on wherever they are in that sense.
Marissa, what about the regulatory aspect of automated document checking?
So there are specific regulations for the use of AI. That's an emerging topic in many jurisdictions. Just as an example, the European Commission published a draft EBA regulations on AI on the 21st of April this year. It states that as a conclusion, new legislation specific to AI may be needed to make the EU legal framework fit for current and for anticipated tech and commercial developments. There are a couple of other examples as well. Typically, we see nothing specific about automated document examination mentioned, but as a working group, we discussed the point and we think that at a minimum, organizations should ensure that the existing risk management policies are extended to include the new solutions that are surrounding the automated document checking. Priyanka, I hope we
Yes.
haven't given too much away because we do want people to read the white paper. So we haven't given too much away. But there is one thing, if people want to skim through and only read one part of it, the part I love most is the section called levels of automation.
Right.
This working group has thought about a matrix and took the example of a similar classification that was used for self-driving cars. I find that matrix really powerful, going from level 0, no automation, all the way to the nirvana state of level 5, full automation, which, just for disclosure's sake, we don't think anybody can get there at the moment yet. But it is a very interesting table to look at.
That's some great insight on the white paper, Marissa User. Thank you very much. As we come to the end of this podcast, I have one last question for both of you. Being the educational arm of the International Chamber of Commerce, we offer professional certifications on trade finance, and a course on documentary credit is part of the certification. With all the new things happening around the world, do you think for today's professionals, continuous professional development is important?
Absolutely, Priyanka, absolutely. And in fact, a number of members, I think almost everyone in my team is either qualified already and with one of the ICC certifications you mentioned, or undergoing the course as well. In fact, it makes it so much more fulfilling that colleagues are undergoing professional certifications and at the same time looking at very pertinent issues like the impact of technology and automation. So I think it's a very interesting time to be in trade finance.
And actually say that it's actually essential. It's not even kind of, a nice to have. I think more and more so what we are doing as a business today is making the job easier. And as I think Marissa mentioned this earlier on in the conversation, that actually you'll need to have the skills and you want people focused on the things they do well. And in a world where fraud continues to become more challenging, AML, KYC, understanding trade, I cannot emphasize and support the importance of these qualifications.
Marissa, User, thank you so much for joining us today. Looks to me like the art of the possible has truly arrived in automating document checking, and it will significantly streamline LC processes overall. Thank you everyone for listening to this podcast. Please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notification of all the upcoming podcast releases. Have a good day.